fait bon dormir. Nous y sommes? Oui, oui, oui. Alors, en avant. Dans le jardin de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris. Dans le jardin de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris. Tous les oiseaux du monde, ils viennent faire leur nid. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir.
Eh ben, moi, si j'étais auprès de ma blonde, je dormirais point, je...
Oh, la ferme, Pitou, tu nous rends deuxième couplet. La caille, la tourterelle, et la jolie perdrix. La caille, la tourterelle, et la jolie perdrix. Et ma jolie colombe qui chante jour et nuit. Auprès de ma blonde, qui fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qui fait bon dormir.
Sûr que je dormirais point auprès de ma blonde, moi, je dirais ma petite chatte en sucre, ma petite croûte en chocolat, je vais te...
Ah, la barbe, Pitou, tu nous bassines. Troisième couplet. Qui chante pour les filles qui n'ont pas de mari. Qui chante pour les filles qui n'ont pas de mari. Pour moi ne chante guère, car j'en ai un joli. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir.
Sûr qu'auprès de ma blonde, moi, je dormirais pas. Je y ferai des risettes, je y ferai des chatouilles, je y ferai des...
Nom de Dieu, Pitou, si vous vous taisez pas, je vous colle 4 jours, salle de police.
Mais capral,
C'est bon, vous les avez, vos 4 jours.
alors je dirai plus rien.
Et c'est pas malheureux, la barbe, Pitou, tu nous canules. Quatrième couplet. Il est dans la Hollande, les Hollandais l'ont pris. Il est dans la Hollande, les Hollandais l'ont pris. Que donneriez-vous belle pour avoir votre ami? Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir. Je donnerai Versailles, Paris et Saint-Denis. Je donnerai Versailles, Paris et Saint-Denis. Les tours de Notre-Dame et le clocher de mon pays. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir.
Hi everybody, this is Brian O'Hearn on the 28th of May, 2009. I thought I'd start out with that nice French marching song because I went to a few of the parades in the area over the last week, and I of course realized once again that this town is wonderful for the children. Everything they do for the children is wonderful. Sometimes the adults let them down by not getting enough revenue into town, but it was a very, very good week for the parades in this town and in Torrington. So for the French people tonight that are descendants of people around France and descendants of the French up in Canada, I played that Aristide Bruant, famous French boulevardier, Apres de ma blonde. You probably remember that when you were a kid. Everybody knows it. That's French, one way or another, and it's one of my favorite French songs. He had his own place in the 1800s, and he was often played at the Chat Noir, and Toulouse-Lautrec did that poster of him that's so famous that you see up there tonight. Now the rest of the program tonight is going to be mainly about, I'm going to talk about how to raise revenue for the town, additional profitable revenue, so that we get new taxpayers into town and they help shoulder the load of a lot of our needs and wants. And it's a very complex situation, and I want to try to go through it tonight with you and give you an idea of how complex it is and how much thought it needs and how much planning it needs. That's why we call this program Planning for Success. And it can't be done, can't be shoehorned in. It's got to be planned by all the leaders of the town. They got to work together like an orchestra, and they need a conductor, that's the town manager, and they got to get this thing done sooner or later. So tonight I'm going to go into quite a bit of detail about that. But first I just want to say, and I don't want to talk too much about it, But, well, the agenda, I made some comments, very few tonight because I'm going to take a long time on these, on the meat of this show. The budget passed yesterday, and it was like a 3-to-1 margin. There were some naysayers that wanted to hold the budget off until Connecticut made up its mind, but in my view, that's a bad thing to do. You got to keep moving forward. It seems like around here, Connecticut never makes up its mind before the town needs to make up its mind, and same with other towns too. So we did it. They did the right thing. Thanks for voting that way. Now, if Connecticut does come and say, hey, you got a little less money coming than we thought you were going to get, then we have a choice. We can either go out for additional taxes, which is probably unlikely, or we'd have to manage the budget back some more, which is more likely, I think, if that indeed happens. And there's no guarantee that it will or won't happen. So that's kind of it for the town budget. And then I'm going to do some considerations regarding profitable additional taxes to the town. Everybody I talk to in town, almost nobody understands this whole revenue situation and the tax situation. Most people haven't got a clue about it. Right? So tonight I'm going to try to do a primer on it and hope to get the word out to people and get them interested in following through and trying to do some of the mathematics behind all this. The mill rate will stay as it is now at 24.67. So you won't be paying any more taxes unless you upgraded your property or bought some new property or anything like that. So 24.67 is the mill rate, and we'll be using that in some of our calculations tonight. Now, tax considerations when seeking additional taxpayers for the town of Winchester. And remember, we need additional taxpayers. We can't just keep soaking the taxpayers we have here. Yes, we do have to raise taxes over the years for the existing people, but in order to really satisfy our wants and needs, we've got to go out and get additional profitable, and I'm going to stress that, profitable taxpayers in to Winchester, and there are various ways to do that, and I'm not sure that everybody understands this, so I'm going to try to explain it now. First thing I'd like to say is that it's very important for the land use boards to stay within the law at all times when dealing with people who want to come to Winchester with developments or with for permits and things like that. So I always say in all the papers I write that I am assuming that the land use boards will do their job according to the laws of the land here in Connecticut and wherever else they are, okay, the town and it. So I have to make that assumption, so do not misunderstand me here. I am not trying to do anything outside of the land use boards or outside of the law. I'm not encouraging any of that. In 2006, a report by Harrell, H-A-R-R-A-L-L, Michalowski Associates, Planning and Development Consultants. In this paper today, for the next hour, we'll call them Harrell, just to save spitting this out again all the time, was submitted to the town's land use boards and is in the public record for the Highland Ridge and St. Anne's Country Club development along the Enterprise Corridor between Torrington and Winston. I talk about it all the time on this program. You should see a picture of some of the housing there. Actually, the picture I think you're going to see is Aurora Estates, not Highland Ridge, but that's okay. It's pretty much the same kettle of fish. During the program tonight, I will not be talking about the country club at all. I just want to give you an idea about the housing development and the taxes associated with that. The following is a brief set of parameters listed in the report. The parameters relate to the housing units alone, not the country club. For further reasoning, see the report, available in the Town Hall Planning Department, and I think you can also get it from the Inland Wetlands Department. This is now 2009. That report was done in 2006. And things have changed and are still changing. So the 2006 numbers are used here just for conceptual, educational, and illustrative purposes, just to get a point across to you in the audience tonight. It's in an effort to give the viewer an understanding of the complexity of the additional tax problem. It's a very complex problem for the land use boards and the town management and the planning department and everybody involved, the EDC. This is not easy. There's a lot of work involved, as I hope to show you this evening. To begin, any given non-tax exempt, there are a lot of properties in town that are tax exempt, a lot of them. Anything the state owns, anything the U.S. government owns, anything the town owns, all the churches, any church-related type things, people who have tax-free companies or associations, that kind of thing. So everybody, except for those tax-exempt people, piece of property, will have an assessed value and may have one or two existing tax assessments. We touched a bit on this a few weeks ago when I went over the top 10 taxpayers in town. So most people will pay real property taxes. That's anybody who owns any kind of a real property. Could be a business, could be a shopping center, could be yourself, you own a home. Any personal property will have real property taxes. Then we have another category, which is mainly for businesses, but also for individuals. It's called personal property taxes. And together, when added up, if you indeed have both of these, that will be your taxes. Now, the personal property taxes, and I'm going to go into that later a little bit, but that's mainly for individuals, homeowners, that's mainly your cars and your trucks. And that's a preponderance of personal property in this town that homeowners own and get taxed on. And maybe a few other things as well. If you have a boat, you own that, you'll get taxed on that. I have a boat, I get taxed on that. So depends what you have. If you have a truck, a car, a van, and a bus, whatever you have, and you're registered. In Winchester, both of these categories are taxed on 70% of the assessed value is the assessed value of market value, which is the appraisal or a sale price. So they will take your appraisal or your sales, the price you paid for the house, and that's how your taxes will be calculated. They'll take 70% of that number, the sales number, the appraisal number. That gives what they call an assessed value, and then they'll multiply that by the mill rate, and that's how much tax you will pay. And I just want to correct a little something I said last time. The personal property tax is only paid once a year. The real estate tax, I'm told, is paid twice a year. First month and 7th or 6th month of July. Because of standard practice in the industry, explained in the Herald Report, the Herald Report has used 50% of market value or assumed sales price to be conservative. So as we charge 70% for known information, because they're dealing with the future when they build a whole bunch of condominiums along the Enterprise Corridor, they use a standard practice in their industry of 50%. If it turns out to be 70% later, then we will be ahead of the game. But 50% is an industry practice for those doing this kind of work. And they use that, again, to be conservative. These are very professional people, and they're scientific, and they have fiduciary responsibility to do the right job. Market value for the residential component is a result of a widely used industry equalization factor, explained briefly in the report and reference for the personal property and referenced. For the personal property, Harold used 70% for reasons they explain in the report. So just to repeat, for the condominiums, they use 50% of the sales value or the appraised value. But for the personal property, for reasons they explain in the report, they use 70%. The report also used information contained in the year 2000 U.S. Census, the Town of Winchester 2005-2006 budget, its associated grand list, and the 2001-2002 U.S. Census to obtain much of the information that's in this report. You can't always work with up-to-date information here. What they do is they go back to the last census, they go back to the last budget, they go back to wherever they can to get information. So there is a difference here between the numbers I'll be talking about tonight and the year 2009, and that's a lot of work to find out what that difference is. But for our purposes here tonight, illustrative purposes, it doesn't matter that much. I'm just going to show you how these things work. At the time of the report, Winchester had 6,942 passenger motor vehicles, each with a net assessed value of $5,751 per vehicle. And this information for these taxes comes from the state, and they're supplied to the town each year. So they have like a little blue book. They'll tell you what the car is, or truck or boat or whatever is worth, and then they will give direction on how to assess the taxes here. But in the end, what happens is they multiply this by the 70% and then the mill rate. So to get this information, the number of vehicles and the dollar value on average is what they get from the state. Now, at the time of this report, there were 4,371 households, maybe different today, divided by, in this town. So the number of households divided by 6,942 passenger vehicles equals 1.59 vehicles per household. So that's what Winston averaged in 2006 when they did this report with the information they had available. Harrell rounded this up to a conservative 2 vehicles per household to do their estimating for the taxes in their development, 455 or 65 houses, condominiums. The mill rate today is 24.67 because of the reval last year, 2007. In 2006, when the report was submitted, it was 32.98. So there's a big difference here. And when I do any calculations tonight, I use 32.98 because that's where we are now. But the calculations in the report were based on 24.67. Estimated public costs for people coming into this development, according to Harrell, the primary impact of a residential development on a municipality, we're the municipality, is population growth. Harold used the per capita multiplier method of fiscal impact analysis. This method is described briefly in the report and referenced. I'm not going to go deeply into this because it doesn't matter for the purposes tonight, but anyone who's interested in understanding that better can go and read the report. According to Harrell, this is the most widely used of all fiscal impact methodologies and contains 5 important assumptions. Assumption number 1. Over the long run, current operating costs per capita and per student costs are the best estimates of future operating cost occasioned by growth in the community. Assumption 2, current local service levels are the most accurate indicators of future service levels, and that they will continue on the same scale in the future. Assumption 3, a further premise is that the current composition of the population occasioning costs and the population contributing to future costs are sufficiently similar that the above scenario will remain unaltered. Assumption 4, the current distribution of expenditures among the various sectors of municipal service will remain constant in the short run and will serve as the primary indicator of the way in which additional expenditures will be subsequently allocated. So, for the Winchester 2005-2006 budget proposal of 41205, the general fund was $9,723,509, or 35.1% of the budget. The Board of Education was $17,965,658, or 64.9% of the budget. And by the way, they're still about those percentages now in 2009. We're very close to that still, which goes to prove some of the assumptions that were made here just now. Now, we also have the famous transfer payments from the state. This is in the Herald report, 2006 report. At the time of the report, education got $6,608,666 from the state. All others transfer payments equaled $874,569, for a total of $7,483,235 from the state. This becomes important when we start to calculate student costs. Total general fund expenses attributable to non-residential uses, there are calculations in the report if you want to see them, totals $2,532,002. So these are general fund expenses attributable to non-residential uses. Per capita and per pupil expenditures for 2001-2002, total attributable to residential use, $662 per resident. So that means that every resident uses, one way or another, $662 of that money from our taxes. That's in the general fund in the budget. So they assume here that every person in town that lives here, resident, costs the town $662 to maintain. And that's based on the U.S. 2004 U.S. Census when our population, according to that census, was 10,867 people. Now we want to talk a bit about the net per pupil local education expenditures. How much does it cost us to have a child in the school system? And this is based on the 2005 enrollment of 1,690 students. I'll give you the source in a minute. And it turns out that after the state reimbursement, the money, $7 million we said we got from the state, the cost per student is was at that time $6,720 for local people that go to local schools. This doesn't count St. Joseph's or any other schools. It's the money we pay for people to go to the local schools. It might even include some of the money we have to pay to go to the other schools as well, but not the private schools, just the public schools. And so that's a very important number to remember, $6,720 when I go into some calculations here for learning purposes here in a few more minutes. The source listed in the report is the Town of Winchester Board of Education, State of Connecticut Department of Education. That's where this information comes from. So it's official as of that time. I'm sure it's different now. And if anybody wants to, they can go in and redo this report using today's numbers. It's not worth me doing it now because there's no reason to, but someday somebody will go in and redo it all, and we have a more accurate feeling for today's cost. There's no sense doing it now because things are changing so rapidly in this recession. Things are changing daily. Now, increase in general fund expenditures. They're trying to predict what the increase will be in the general fund expenditures, and they want to predict for the town in the report what will the increase in Board of Education expenditures be once the 455 or 65 condos are up and running and they're populated. This is from the report. We estimate that the current average size of households purchasing active community single-family dwellings ranges between 1.91 and 2.02 persons. The year 2000 U.S. Census indicates that there are 2.57 persons per owner-occupied unit in Winchester. This is very important. The year 2000 U.S. Census indicates that there are 2.51 persons per owner occupied unit in Winchester. It's an important number. Harrell referred to the Bureau of U.S. Census figures to justify their numbers for anticipated population growth. Then they multiplied the number of additional people by 662. That's the amount of money I told you earlier it takes to support each of us in this town. Repair the roads, the firehouse, all that kind of thing. So 455 units times 1.91 to 2.02, that's the estimated population growth, will give you, over the life of the project, which is about 5 years, once it's done, 869 to 919 additional people in this town. So that's how they arrived at that number. The increase in general fund expenditures as a result of the population growth will now go, so that's 662 times 869 in one case, or 662 times 919 in the other case. And that gives an increase in the general fund expenditures of $575,278 to $608,378. So once all these people are in, that's how much money it'll take to support them in those 455 condos up on the Enterprise Corridor. We're only talking about Highland Ridge and the Country Club group of condos. There are another 225 condos coming in up there, but they're not the subject of tonight's discussion or this report that's in the Herald report. Increase in Board of Education expenditures based on the net pupil cost of $6,720. That's after they subtract out all the money the state gives us. Because there are very few children in this project, and you can see the numbers in the report, be peanuts. It'd be $120,960 because they're going to be age restricted. They'll have very few children, if any at all, in this 455 units. They felt they had to put some number in there just in case a grandmother or a grandfather or both had to take care of an incapacitated child or something like that. So there are a few rooms for that kind of an exception in here. But in general, there won't be any children here. Now that's a very important point because that's what's going to make this, assuming all other things are equal, a very profitable project for this town. They won't have to pay at the rate of $6,720 for children, a lot of children, to go into the school system. Now, we can't absorb a certain amount of children already. We don't know exactly how many, but we can absorb children into the school system now because we're underutilizing our schools right now for various reasons. The total increase in general fund and education expenses put together, when you tie them together, is, as a result of this development, when it's finished, will be $696,238 to $729,338. Now they'll be paying their taxes, and this is how much the town will take from their taxes to support them with services. Now, they talk in the report about the absorption forecast and estimated municipal fees and user charges. So this project will be put in over 5 years. That's what they call the absorption period. It will peak in the range of 10 to 15 units per month once it gets going, and 120 to 140 units per year. Now, this was in the report and may not no longer be true, but this is a point I'm trying to get across to you, how this is constructed. Forecast for sales of 455 units. Year 1, 80 units. Year 2, 100 units. Year 3, 120 units. Year 4, 120 units. Year 5, 35 units. Now, for all these, which should equal 455, I did it right, building permits are $15 per $100 of construction value. Assuming $150,000 sales price, each would cost $2,250 for building permits, unless it's changed since 2006. I didn't get a chance to go down and check that out. I'll be getting a building permit myself pretty soon, so I'll know for sure what it is. So the total for the 455 units, and this is building permits, these are once only, they're not recurring, is $1,023,600. $750 to the town. And the next, connection fees for sewer and water, $1,000 each per unit, and there are 455 units. So that would be $455,000 for sewer connections to these condominiums, and it would be $450,000 for water connections, for a total of another almost million, $910,000. So there's a couple million just between those. Now I must say that these sewer and water connections go into the sewer and water side of the budget, into a profit center there, and they have their own profit center. And these fees don't go into the general fund, they go into their profit center. And they're used to upkeep the sewer and water facilities, and add things and subtract things and do whatever you have to do to keep them running. The annual sewer fees, usage fees, these are usage, like you pay and I pay. $272 estimated per unit, or $123,760 for all the condos together per year. The annual water fees for usage of the water, and we have plenty of water in Winsted, a lot of water with our new plant, and we've always had a lot of water here. It all came out during the hearings. $431 per unit, or $196,105. So now we're up to $2.25 million here. These are recurring, by the way. They happen every year. So total there for, we got a little goofed up here. Total one-time fees are $1,023,750. I think I goofed that up a little. But the total annual fees come to $320,090 there. Now, there's a secondary fiscal impact for a development like this. And by the way, these kind of general way you approach all developments, whether they're 2 houses or 3 houses or 5 condos or 3 condos or 455, it's the same methodology that's used, a little easier when there's a little less, but you still need the same kind of numbers to plug into the formulas. The secondary fiscal impact is job creation and induced spending and economic activity. The jobs created in the area will be construction jobs, both temporary and permanent, and the consumer spending in the local economy, and ancillary economic impacts on businesses in the region over this 5-year construction period. They estimate in the report there will be 300 jobs created as a result of the construction activity over the years, for a total of 1,500 construction jobs over the 5-year period. 5 times 300. The average salary of the workers will be $50,000 per year for each construction job. For a total of $15 million annually in wages paid to construction workers. There will also be maintenance and landscaping of the area when it's completed, and there'll be 30 full-time equivalent jobs with an annual salary of $20,000 each, or $600,000, once construction is complete and the development is operational. Now, as far as induced consumer spending is concerned, and I've talked about all these on the programs before and in the other committee meetings, $400,000 average sale price was assumed at that time. And in their report, they explain that the household income times the sales price usually has a 4-to-1 relationship. So if you have an average household income of $100,000, about 30% of that will be spent According to the report on Common Ground, the National Association of Home Builders estimates that roughly 30% of the new home occupants' income is spent on items produced by local businesses such as medical, daycare, dry cleaning, and auto repairs. See the report and references for more information. This money will most likely be spent in Torrington and the Winsted area, according to the report. So 455 units times 100,000 equals 45,500,000 annually in income, and those 455 families. So for 45,500,000 times 30% equals $13,650,000 will be spent in the local economy, Winston and Torrington, by the people in this development. And the backup figures for that come from, they're all referenced in the report from the authorities they get them from. Now we're going to talk a bit about the nut, and that's the property tax revenues for the town. Real property tax revenues will be $2,991,698 according to this report, 206 report. It may have changed since. And personal property tax revenues will be about $195,684, and that's from estimating how many cars will be in there. You know, went over those numbers earlier in the program. So the total tax revenues, real property and personal property, will be $3,187,382, minus the current tax paid on the property before any development is done, which is $13,337. That's how much they're paying for taxes for the land. It may be a little different now because they've been doing some clearing and all. But so the annual net tax revenues, after you subtract out what it was before these people came along, is $3,174,045. Now, for municipal expenditures, and we're trying to tie these numbers together a bit now, general fund residential is the $575,278 to $608,378 that we talked about earlier. And for this particular project, the Board of Education expenses are very, very minimal because it's age restricted. $120,960 in total annual expenditures. So we have $696,238 to $729,338 annual net fiscal impact, revenues minus expenditures. So we will be somewhere between $2,444,707 to $2,477,807 after we deduct out our costs that we cost the town. So they're pretty big numbers. And the one point I want to make on this, and this is the point most people miss, is that this is age restricted. The biggest cost to the town we have are the schools. Not saying that we can't absorb some of these people, but in this particular project we don't need to absorb them because there aren't going to be any children. So that's very profitable. We can take this money, or a good part of it, and spend it on upgrading our town's fire stations, schools, police station, town hall, and whatever else we want to do with the money. And that'll be coming in every year, after 5 years when these things are finished. Nobody knows yet when they're going to start because of the economy, and they still need some permits from the state, but sooner or later, this will be a boon to our community. Now, I do want to show you some alternative examples, because you have to think about these things when you have a plan to grow the town. And a lot of it, as I keep saying to the Economic Development Commission and any other commission that will listen, is that it's got to be driven to a certain extent numerically. What are you trying to achieve? What kind of a balance in revenue and expenditures are you trying to achieve, and what kind of growth rates do you want in both? That has to be your objectives. And then the plan needs to be put together around that. What I can see is the backwards. They're putting a plan together, but they don't know what their objectives are, numerical objectives are. And I got a real problem with that, because you can't really do it that way. But anyway, I now want to talk about some other examples just to give you a feel for how complex this whole thing is for all involved, the EDC, the selectmen, the inland wetlands people, the planning and zoning people, and every other commission in town that's involved in this. First of all, there are a bunch of people that get a free ride. They don't pay any tax, and if they pay any, it's minimal. So they don't pay any recurring tax. They're churches, as I mentioned earlier, church-related groups. There's different kinds. You can find them in a book down at the town hall. If anybody's interested in all the people that don't pay any tax, you can go down there, the town clerk's office, get a book and go through them all. Town-owned buildings, like the town hall and the fire station and things like that. State-owned buildings. U.S.-owned buildings. There are any here. Tax-free organizations. Tax-free associations. And others. So I just wanted to give you an idea that there's a whole bunch of people in this town using our facilities. They're also doing some good too. They're spending money and things, but they don't pay tax. And we're not much we're going to be able to do about that. So we can forget them from a tax viewpoint. And some nice things that we have in town don't pay much tax here. That's the college, the Wall of America, the Future Tort Museum, those kind of things. Good for the town, good for attracting people, not too good at paying taxes. Industrial building, recurring tax. I'm just going to show you now a difference between a big development, which is very lucrative because it doesn't have any children in it. It's age restricted. So here's an industrial building, just an example for training purposes. Let's say the appraised or sales price is $6 million. The assessed value is 70% of that. I'm using that because I know this is $6 million. And that turns out to be an assessed value on the books in the town for $4,200,000. To calculate the real estate tax, I will take the mill rate, 24.67 mills. You actually have to do it this way, 0.02467 times 4,200,000, and that's how much tax they will pay to the town, 103,614 for real estate taxes for the buildings they own, and that which falls into the real estate tax side. But they also have big time personal property, and some of these factories that come in, they have a lot of personal property. For example, this example I'm using here has $2,500,000 worth of personal property. Lathes, machines, trucks, cars, buses, whatever they got there. And that's quite a bit of money. So for the personal property, they will be taxed. Take the $2,500,000 times 70%, which will equal the assessed value of $1,750,000 times the mill rate, 0.02467, equals $43,173 in taxes, in addition to the other taxes for the real estate. So now we're up to $150,000 here. Now, the good part about this from the factory is the total revenue is $103,614 plus $43,173 minus, I put in $50,000 that the land was worth before they built the factory, and you got $96,787 in taxes. Now, this factory has no children to go to the schools. The children are in the condos or in the houses, and those houses are being paid for with taxes, and that's where the children's educations are paid for from that. So what happens is you have 0 children, and you don't have any grand list expense. That's all factored into cost per person for the whole town, 662. So this is very, very profitable and lucrative money. And what you can do is you can take that $96,787 and spend it on people who may have a house that's losing money in taxes. They have more kids going to school than they're paying taxes. And it isn't just the schools, it's also the $662 per person in the house that you have to support them. So that's an example of the kind of business that we're trying to attract to town. Now, don't anybody misunderstand me. You have to have children in town. You want to have whatever you think the balance should be. But you have to realize that at a certain point, you've got to make sure you don't get into a pickle where you can't afford to pay for their education. Now, I also have an example of a single-family new average-priced home. And that appraisal or sales price will say is $100,000. The assessed value, 70% of that, which is $70,000. I think this is about the average in town now, somewhere down in that area. The real estate property tax is 24.67 mils times 70,000, the assessed value, for a tax of $1,727. And let's say for personal property, this little homeowner has 2 cars worth $500,000 each. So you take, and that information comes from the state every year as what they're worth, and so that would equal $10,000 for 2 cars because they're worth $5,000 each, times the 70% to give you the assessed value, which is $7,000, times the mill rate will give you the tax, $173. Unless I did something wrong here, which I don't think I did. So that's what it is. And then so the total revenue for the home and the personal property will be $1,900. Now the cost for this home will be, assuming a husband, a wife, 2 school-age children, and 2 school-age children. Well, it'll be 4 times the 662 because each of those 4 people needs to be supported by the town general fund budget. So that's a total of $2,648 from the general fund budget to support that family. They're paying less than that in taxes. So we, the rest of the town, has to absorb the rest of those. So then you have 2 times 6,720 if the kids go to the local schools in town. That's another $13,440 from the local education budget. And then you subtract out the previous taxes, say $1,200. We'll assume that's what they were before. And the total additional cost will be $17,288, whereas the total additional revenue is $1,900 in revenue minus $17,288 in expenses. So we, the town, on this particular home will lose $15,388, which has to be absorbed by the rest of the citizens in the town. With that, we're running out of time. I had one more example. Maybe I'll do it some other time. But I wanted to show you that there are various ways to bring revenue into town. Some are loss leaders, and some are can help improve us. And we, the town, have to be very careful about planning this so that we have the right balance. We have as many, enough children, enough senior citizens, et cetera, et cetera. With that, thank you. I'll see you next week.
Attention les hommes, pour chanter auprès de ma blonde qui fait bon dormir. Nous y sommes? Oui, oui, oui. Alors, en avant. Dans le jardin de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris. Dans le jardin de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris. Tous les oiseaux du monde, ils viennent faire leur nid. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir.
Eh ben, moi, si j'étais auprès de ma blonde, je dormirais point,
Ah, colombe qui chante jour et nuit. Auprès de ma blonde qui fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde qui fait bon dormir.
Sûr que je dormirai point auprès de ma blonde, moi. Je dirais ma petite chatte en sucre, ma petite crotte en chocolat, je vais te...
Ah, la barbe Pitou, tu nous bassines. Troisième couplet. Qui chante pour les filles qui n'ont pas de mari. Qui chante pour les filles qui n'ont pas de mari. Pour moi ne chante guère, car j'en ai un joli. Auprès de ma blonde, il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, il fait bon dormir.
Sûr qu'auprès de ma blonde, moi, je dormirai pas. Je y ferai des risettes, je y ferai des chatouilles, je y ferai des...
Nom de Dieu, Pitou, si vous vous taisez pas, je vous colle 4 jours, salle de police.
Mais capral,
C'est bon, vous les avez, vos 4 jours.
alors je dirai plus rien.
Et c'est pas malheureux, la barbe Pitou, tu nous canules. Quatrième couplet. Il est dans la Hollande, les Hollandais l'ont pris. Il est dans la Hollande, les Hollandais l'ont pris. Que donneriez-vous belle pour avoir votre ami? Auprès de ma blonde, il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, il fait bon dormir. Je donnerai Versailles, Paris et Saint-Denis. Je donnerai Versailles, Paris et Saint-Denis. Les tours de Notre-Dame, et le clocher